Everything you thought was solid is starting to feel hollow. The job that used to give you purpose now feels meaningless. Relationships that seemed fulfilling now feel superficial. You're having thoughts you've never had before, questions you can't stop asking, a restlessness you can't explain. And the strangest part? You can't go back to normal no matter how hard you try. Carl Jung discovered that spiritual awakening doesn't happen randomly. It announces itself. There are specific, undeniable signs that appear weeks or months before the breakthrough. Signs so clear that Jung could predict when someone was about to awaken just by listening to what they were experiencing. And if you're noticing these signs right now, everything is about to change. Today I'm revealing the 7 signs Jung identified that prove spiritual awakening is near. Not years away, near. And if you're experiencing even 3 of these, Jung would say, prepare yourself. Your entire reality is about to shift. Here's what Jung understood that changes everything. Spiritual awakening doesn't happen suddenly. It's preceded by what he called the disintegration phase, a period where your old consciousness begins breaking down before new consciousness can emerge. Like ice cracking before spring, like contractions before birth, these signs announce that something is trying to break through. Most people experiencing these signs think something's wrong with them. They're becoming depressed, losing motivation, going through a crisis. But Jung recognized these as symptoms of approaching awakening. Your psyche is preparing for transformation. Your old self is loosening its grip. Your consciousness is getting ready to expand. These signs aren't random. They follow a pattern Jung observed in hundreds of patients on the edge of breakthrough. And once you recognize them, you'll understand. You're not falling apart. You're being prepared for something your current consciousness can't yet comprehend. The first sign is one most people completely misunderstand. Things that used to matter deeply now feel empty. Your career, your achievements, your goals, they've lost their pull. Not because you've failed at them, but because they've stopped meaning what they used to mean. You're experiencing what Jung called the collapse of provisional meanings. This isn't depression, though it feels similar. Depression says, nothing will ever matter. This says, what I thought mattered doesn't, and I don't know what does yet. You're in the gap between old meaning and new meaning, and that gap feels like existential emptiness. One of Jung's patients, a successful banker, described this. I achieved everything I set out to achieve. House, career, status. Then one day I looked at it all and felt nothing. Not disappointment, not sadness, just nothing. Like I'd been chasing something that turned out to be empty. I thought I was having a midlife crisis. Jung said I was having a pre-awakening crisis. My psyche was rejecting the meanings I'd been living by to make space for real meaning. This is what Jung meant by the necessary disillusionment. Before new meaning can emerge, old meaning must be seen through. You can't build new consciousness on the foundation of old beliefs. The foundation must crack first. And you experience that cracking as meaninglessness. You'll notice nothing excites you like it used to. Achievements feel hollow. Status seems pointless. Material gains don't satisfy. This isn't loss, it's preparation. Your psyche is clearing space for meanings that actually align with your authentic self. But clearing space requires emptying out first. And this emptying creates the second sign that Jung said proves awakening is imminent. You're suddenly questioning beliefs you've held your entire life, not casually wondering, deeply questioning. Beliefs about God, meaning, reality, self, relationships. Everything is up for examination, and you can't stop the questions even if you want to. Before this phase, you had solid beliefs, maybe religious, maybe atheist, maybe somewhere between. But They felt true. You weren't questioning. You were believing. Now suddenly, everything feels uncertain, not from doubt in the negative sense, but from genuine inquiry. Your psyche is demanding, is this actually true, or have I just been told it's true? One of Jung's analysans, a devout Catholic, described this phase. I'd believed in God my entire life. Then suddenly I was asking, do I actually believe this, or do I believe I'm supposed to believe this? Every doctrine I'd accepted without question was suddenly questionable. I felt guilty, like I was losing my faith. Jung explained, I wasn't losing faith, I was finding it. Real faith can only come after questioning. Inherited belief isn't faith, it's programming. This is what Jung called the death of borrowed beliefs. You're letting go of ideas you accepted from parents, culture, religion, society, not because they're wrong, but because they're not yours. You didn't choose them consciously. They were installed. And awakening requires uninstalling everything that isn't authentically yours. You'll notice you can't accept answers anymore just because someone in authority said them. You need to know for yourself. You're willing to sit in not knowing rather than accepting false certainty. This isn't rebelliousness, it's consciousness preparing to think for itself. But questioning beliefs is just the mental preparation. The third sign affects something even more fundamental. Your relationships are suddenly problematic. Friendships that seemed fine now feel superficial. Your partner seems like a stranger. Family dynamics feel suffocating. Not because these people changed, because you're changing. And your relationships can't accommodate the change. This happens because relationships are built on mutual agreements about who each person is. You're the funny one. They're the serious one. You're the helper. They're the helped. These roles create stability. But pre-awakening consciousness starts rejecting roles. You're becoming someone who doesn't fit the agreed-upon pattern. And the relationship structure starts cracking. One of Jung's patients described this. My best friend of 15 years suddenly felt like an acquaintance. We'd talk and I'd think, do I even know this person? Do they know me? Nothing dramatic happened. I just couldn't play the role in our friendship anymore. The version of me that was her friend was dying, and I didn't know who I was becoming yet. This is what Jung called the relationship purge. Not because you're becoming antisocial, but because you're becoming authentic. And authentic, you can't maintain relationships based on false versions of yourself. Some relationships will evolve, many won't. And before awakening, you start feeling which is which. You'll notice you're pulling away from people without fully understanding why. Conversations feel exhausting. You're canceling plans. You need more alone time. This isn't antisocial, it's preparatory. Your psyche is creating space for transformation that relationships built on your old self would prevent. But relationship disruption, while painful, isn't the most disorienting sign. The fourth one is, your body starts acting strange. Fatigue that rest doesn't fix. Sleep patterns changing. Appetite fluctuating, random pains that doctors can't explain, heightened sensitivity to everything. Your body is preparing for consciousness expansion before your mind knows what's happening. This occurs because awakening isn't just psychological, it's physiological. Your nervous system must rewire to hold expanded consciousness. Your energy system must reconfigure. Your physical form is getting ready for something it's never experienced. And you feel this preparation as unexplained symptoms. One of Jung's analysans, a yoga teacher, described this. I was exhausted constantly despite sleeping well. I'd get random chest pressure, head pressure, energy surges. Every medical test came back normal. Jung explained, My body was preparing for awakening. The symptoms were pre-transformation. My physical system was reorganizing before my consciousness caught up. You'll notice you're more sensitive to everything. Caffeine affects you differently. Certain foods don't work anymore. You can't tolerate loud environments. Your body is becoming more refined, more sensitive, more capable of holding the consciousness that's about to emerge. The discomfort is upgrade, not breakdown. But physical changes are just one dimension. The fifth sign affects your inner world even more dramatically. If you're experiencing these signs, meaninglessness, questioning everything, relationship disruption, strange physical symptoms, Jung would say, you're in the pre-awakening phase. The breakthrough is coming, and these final signs will confirm how close you are. Before we continue, check out our new guide, True Self-Discovery, with 24 practical reflection exercises designed to help you find your way within. Click below to get True Self-Discovery. Now, these last signs are the ones that prove awakening is imminent. This is Jung's fifth critical sign. Your dreams intensify dramatically, more vivid, more meaningful, more memorable. And synchronicities start appearing. Meaningful coincidences that feel too perfect to be random. Your unconscious is trying to communicate something, and it's getting louder. Before awakening, dreams are often forgettable, random. But in the pre-awakening phase, they become undeniable. You dream of death and rebirth, transformation, journey, meeting guides or figures. Symbols that feel deeply significant. Your unconscious knows awakening is coming and is preparing you through dreams. One of Jung's patients described this. I started having dreams so vivid I'd wake up disoriented. Dreams of dying, transforming, meeting wise beings who'd give me teachings. Dreams that felt more real than waking life. I'd also see repeating numbers constantly. 1111, 333, 444. Messages everywhere. I thought I was losing touch with reality. Jung said I was gaining touch with deeper reality. My unconscious was breaking through. This is what Jung meant by the activation of the unconscious. As consciousness prepares to expand, the unconscious becomes more active, more vocal, more insistent. Dreams and synchronicities are its language, and when they intensify, awakening is near. You'll notice reality feels more meaningful. Everything seems connected. You're seeing patterns everywhere. This isn't delusion, it's your consciousness beginning to perceive the interconnected web that was always there, but you couldn't see before. But dreams and synchronicities are just the unconscious's messages. The sixth sign is the conscious mind's response. You're consumed by seeking, reading spiritual books, watching videos like this, searching for answers, teachers, practices, anything that might explain what's happening to you. You have a hunger you can't satisfy because what you're hungry for hasn't emerged yet. This seeking isn't intellectual curiosity. It's desperate need. You feel like there's something you're supposed to understand, something you're supposed to remember, something you're supposed to find, and you're consuming information, voraciously trying to find it. But nothing quite satisfies because you're seeking the awakening itself, and it hasn't happened yet. One of Jung's patients, a scientist, described this. I became obsessed. Every free moment I was reading about consciousness, spirituality, psychology, mysticism. I couldn't stop. I felt like I was on the edge of understanding something massive, but I couldn't quite grasp it. Jung said I was in sacred hunger. My psyche knew awakening was coming and was trying to prepare intellectually for what consciousness would soon experience directly. This is what Jung called the preparation phase. Your conscious mind is trying to catch up to what your unconscious already knows. You're seeking frameworks, language, concepts that will help you understand the experience that's approaching. The seeking won't satisfy you, but it's necessary preparation. You'll notice you can't watch normal TV anymore. You're only interested in depth, meaning truth. You're having conversations with strangers about consciousness. You're isolating to read and contemplate. This isn't obsession, it's preparation. Your mind is getting ready, and this preparation creates the final, most undeniable sign that awakening is imminent. You feel like you're losing your mind. Nothing makes sense. You don't recognize yourself. Reality feels unstable. You're having thoughts and perceptions that seem insane, and everyone around you seems to be living in a completely different world than you. This isn't psychosis, though it can feel similar. It's what Jung called the disintegration of the old ego structure before the emergence of the self. Your personality is coming apart. Your worldview is dissolving. Your sense of reality is shifting. This feels like madness because your old consciousness has no framework for what's happening. One of Jung's most profound patients described this phase. I thought I was having a psychotic break. I'd look at normal people living normal lives and feel like they were the crazy ones, living in a collective delusion, playing roles, believing obvious lies. But I also felt crazy for thinking that. I was terrified. Jung said, "You're not going mad, you're coming sane. What you're experiencing as insanity is just consciousness seeing through collective insanity for the first time." This is what Jung meant by the dark night before the dawn. Right before awakening, there's often a period of complete disorientation. You're between worlds. The old one no longer makes sense, and the new one hasn't emerged yet. You're in psychological freefall, and it's terrifying. But here's what Jung emphasized. This feeling of going crazy is the final sign that awakening is imminent. The old consciousness is in its death throes. It's fighting for survival. And its death feels like your death. But you're not dying. You're being reborn. And birth requires the death of what was before. You'll notice you can't act normal anymore, even when you try. You can't pretend life is what everyone else pretends it is. You can't participate in collective unconsciousness. This isn't dysfunction. It's the impossibility of going back. The bridge to your old consciousness is burning, and awakening is the only direction left. The 7 signs spiritual awakening is near. Everything suddenly feels meaningless. Old meaning is collapsing to make space. You're questioning everything you believed. Borrowed beliefs are being released. Your relationships are falling apart. Roles based on false self are dissolving. You're having strange physical symptoms. Your body is preparing for transformation. You're having intense dreams and synchronicities. Your unconscious is breaking through. You're desperately seeking something. Your mind is preparing for what's coming. You feel like you're going crazy. Your old consciousness is dying. Jung would want you to understand. If you're experiencing these signs, you're not broken. You're not having a crisis. You're in the pre-awakening phase. Everything that feels like it's falling apart is actually falling away, making space, clearing ground, preparing you for consciousness, expansion your current self can't yet imagine. These signs can last weeks, months, even years. There's no timeline. But Jung observed that once these signs appear, awakening is inevitable. You can't go back to unconsciousness. You can only go forward into consciousness. The disintegration phase is painful, disorienting, terrifying. But it's necessary. Caterpillars have to dissolve before butterflies emerge. If you're experiencing these signs right now, if everything feels meaningless, if you're questioning everything, if your life is falling apart, If you feel like you're going crazy, Jung would tell you, hold on. Awakening is near. You're in the hardest part, the dissolution of the old before the emergence of the new. Don't fight these signs. Don't try to go back to normal. You can't. The only way is forward. Let the meaninglessness be. Let the questions surface. Let the relationships fall away if they need to. Let your body do what it's doing. Pay attention to your dreams. Keep seeking. And know that the feeling of going crazy is actually the feeling of becoming sane in an insane world. Jung believed that these pre-awakening signs are a sacred announcement. Your psyche is telling you, get ready. Everything is about to change, not in some distant future, soon. The consciousness you've been seeking is seeking you back, and it's almost here. Trust the process, honor the signs, stay with the discomfort. The breakthrough is coming, and when it arrives, everything you're experiencing right now will make perfect sense. You'll understand why the old had to die, why nothing could satisfy you, why you felt crazy. It was all preparation for becoming who you actually are. Subscribe to explore what happens after these signs, when awakening actually breaks through. To dive even deeper into Jung's revolutionary psychology and what it means for your spiritual awakening, click the recommended video on your screen now.